What's poppin', what's good, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, Happy New Year. I go by Rico Suave, and this is Posted Media. I feel like I haven't done that intro in a minute. I just keep getting into the videos, but you guys, real quick before we start this next video, I do want to let you guys know that I have so much content planned for just the next couple of months that this year is going to be crazy. I also want to thank everybody. In more recent years, it feels like time is going by faster, or our attention spans are getting shorter because something comes today, it's gone tomorrow, whether that's an album, an allegation, or, somebody's passing. But I thought we would revisit a case that I don't think is getting enough attention, and it really should be for the amount of attention it got when it first came out. Kyle Massey. When the Kyle Massey allegations dropped, both times you saw reports from all types of YouTubers, whether they were people who did reaction videos, they were commentary channels, they were reporters, or drama channels. Everybody was talking about this. But I don't see the same oomph now. And I understand why, because when you Google it, you just keep seeing all of the old stuff. But that be my main problem with a lot of these YouTube channels is that if it's not easy or it's not already right there, they're not reporting on it. I'm gonna stop talking. You guys grab whatever snacks, popcorn, drinks, wine. If you're an adult, some bourbon. I like my dark liquor. Grab something fun, sit back, and enjoy the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment because I love talking to you guys.
Hey guys, I am Angel Massey, and I am getting on here about the accusation that is going around about my son Kyle Massey, which is an old story. It's the same family, it's the same people, it's the same little girl, which is not the little girl, it's the mom. Kindra Andreas is her name, and I am Kyle's mother. And this is basically one of those things, kind of like a scorned, in my opinion, a scorned, like when the man gets a new job and the baby mama goes and go back to the courtroom and go courthouse to try to get more child support. It's kind of synonymous to that.
So by this point in our creator-viewer relationship, you guys know that if I have a question, my nosy ass is going to try to find the answer, and whatever I find, I come share with you guys, whether I like it or not. I'll start this by saying I'm fully aware of the overwhelming amount of sexual assaults that happen every day, and the underwhelming amount that are actually reported, or hell, even go to court. Sadly, there's also a small fraction of false accusations that never seem to be as publicized as the original accusation. I always say this, that Posted welcomes all ideas and perspectives. I think it makes for a better experience overall for everyone. I welcome all comments, even the ones I got on my most recent videos calling me a rapist apologist and a Nick Carter lover. So I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way because it seems like it needs to be said. Try to keep an open mind with this video, or with my videos in general. Try not to think so much with your emotions and feelings, but think with logic. What makes sense? Let's get into it. So unless you lived under a rock in the early 2000s, you've definitely seen these two faces before. The Massey brothers managed to be on two of the biggest kid networks, playing characters on some of the network's biggest shows in history. Older brother Chris Massey played Michael in Nickelodeon's Zoe 101, while younger brother Kyle Massey played in That's So Raven and Corey in the House on Disney Channel. But don't worry, this isn't a nostalgic Where Are They Now video. At this point, it's 2023, so I'm sure you've all heard about, or read headlines, hell, seen thumbnails about Kyle Massey being one of the latest child stars accused of being inappropriate with a minor, to say the least. Now, I remember mentioning it in an old video I did about Drake Bell and Aaron Carter, and naturally, I started to find myself wondering whatever happened because after I first heard about the case, it seems like I never heard anything else. So today we're going to dive into that case. Let's start off with a Cliff Note timeline version of everything that's happened up until now. It's going to be easier to follow along this way, I hope, because this gets messy, guys, and I need you guys to be here with me. Since there is a minor involved, for her privacy, we'll refer to her as Jane Doe, but her mother has been ID'd as Kindra Andreas. Now, if you do research, you can find the minor's name, but I'm not going to be putting that out. In 2019, Kindra Andreas filed a $1.5 million civil lawsuit in Los Angeles, California, against actor Kyle Massey for allegedly sending numerous sexually explicit messages and images and videos to a minor. Now, although the minor's legal team initially suggested the civil suit against Massey, according to court docs, the case went nowhere because lawyers told her they didn't think Kyle had enough money to make the case worth it, which I think is really petty, but it's also, kind of beneficial. You don't want to drag a whole lawsuit that you're not going to get anything out of. Jane Doe and her mother went forward with the lawsuit and civil case, which just ended up being dismissed for failure to prosecute and dismissed without prejudice. So in 2021, Kindra took the same story to her local sheriff's office in Washington state, where she filed a police report opening a criminal case against Kyle for those same thrown out allegations. When the felony charges were brought against Kyle Massey, he missed his court date in Washington, which resulted in a $100,000 bench warrant for his arrest. I think that's good. So now that we're all caught up on what happened, let's hear the story from each side, starting with the story according to the victim's mom, Kindra. According to the original 2019 lawsuit, Massey met the minor Jane Doe in roughly 2009 at Universal Studios when the minor was only 4 years old. From that day, Kyle stayed in touch with Jane Doe and her family. Jane Doe and her mom have said apparently Kyle originally held himself out as a father figure to the minor. Court docs go on to say that contact between the two, minor and Kyle, supposedly increased in November 2018 when Jane Doe was around 13 in 8th grade. The minor was allegedly interested in a role on a supposed Cory in the House or That's So Raven's reboot. Kindra's story continues, stating that Kyle tried to encourage Jane Doe to move from Seattle to Los Angeles to live with him and his then girlfriend to help pursue a career in acting on the Disney Channel. The lawsuit continues that a month later, Massey allegedly added the minor on Snapchat, where he then sent her numerous sexually explicit messages, images, and videos. Jane Doe apparently told her mother, and her mother reacted to the inappropriate Snapchats by putting them on a flash drive and giving it to the police. I mean, which is smart, right? Now the story according to Kyle's mother, Angel Massey. Angel alleges, without her knowledge, Kyle and Kindra developed a sexual relationship around 2007 when Kyle was only 16 despite her being 7 years older than him. She states the Massey family moved back to Georgia in late 2007 to early 2008 after Kyle finished recording Cory in the House. Now, Angel admits, despite Kyle having a girlfriend at the time, the pictures and videos in questions definitely came from Kyle himself. But Angel says that supposedly Kyle sent them directly to Kindra's phone and her personal Snapchat account. Not a number or account Kyle knew or even thought belonged to Jane Doe or that Jane Doe had access to. Mrs. Massey goes on to say in 2018, Kindra wanted to move to California and asked to stay with Kyle, but Kyle and his then girlfriend lived together, so he told Kindra she would basically have to pay rent. And I don't think Kindra took that well, because not too long after, she decided to send the Masseys a demand letter requesting $1.5 million, or else she'd go public and ruin his reputation, specifically bringing up the Me Too movement. Angel Massey went as far as to say internal corruption like manufacturing arrest documents within Washington's King County Sheriff's Department played a major part in Kyle even receiving that bench warrant in 2021, let alone him still facing felony charges. As always, guys, I try to do all the groundwork and investigating of every side of the story to bring you a complete story with some evidence and proof, of course, to let you guys make your own decisions and come to your own conclusions. This video is no different, but because of the severity of the conversation, I felt like I needed to extensively verify parts of each side of the story and try to find which one was more accurate to whatever the truth actually is. So, my investigating started with an interview Mrs. Massey did about a year or so ago, where she spilled all of the tea. Mrs. Massey described in detail their old Southern California neighborhood. So I did a simple Google search literally as I was watching the interview, and I was low key surprised that what Google Maps was showing me fit what Angel Massey was describing to a T.
We used to live on a street called Vineland, and the intersection was Ventura. So Vineland and Ventura was our street. And there's a Ralph's, there's a Jamba Juice, and there is a Rite Aid that was right on the corner. And there was an apartment complex, which was our apartment complex, Archstone. And then there's a famous hotel. It's called the Beverly Garland Holiday Inn Hotels, and it's on Vineland, the corner of Vineland and Ventura. The hotel was to the left. If you were going into the guard shack, the hotel was to the left. The apartment complex where we lived was in the middle. We were sandwiched in between the plaza. So obviously, when Kyle and Christopher was supposed to be going to Rite Aid or the Jamba Juice or the Ralph's, Kyle was going next door to the hotel because that's where, when she would come to California, she would take him when he was younger, when he was under 18 years old. So it wasn't like it was something that was so obvious that, because he didn't drive, he didn't even get a driver's license before he was 18 years old. So he never drove anywhere without me or his dad. You know what I mean? And so it was weird because we left California when he was 16, when he did Corey in the House. So when we finished with Corey in the House and we went back home, it was on his 16th. He had just turned 16 when we left California.
Google Maps also showed me that Universal Studios isn't that far from the old neighborhood, meaning Kindra's story of meeting at Universal Studios is very plausible. Now, as far as Angel's claims of corruption and nepotism against the Washington police regarding the mishandling of Kyle's case, I obviously can't confirm any corruption, but when I looked up that sheriff's office, lo and behold, that office has been battling these same type of complaints as far back as 2001 and as recent as 2021. Ironically, when Kyle's criminal charges were filed. I mean, they have a lot of issues. When it comes to Kindra's side of the story, the details she gave didn't really add up or make sense. So, like, for instance, Jane Doe's family claims Kyle's nastiness started in 2018 when the minor reached out to him about auditioning for Corey in the House or a That's So Raven reboot. Depending on the article you read, they kind of go back and forth. But either way, Corey in the House was never set to get a reboot. It only had one season. Why would you reboot that? Raven's Home premiered their first season back in 2017, meaning the show would have filmed at least a year before the allegations claimed. So, like, her timeline's a little off. Kindra stated the family met Kyle at Universal Studios in '09. While that could definitely be true, given how close Universal Studios is to his old neighborhood, but the fact that in '09 Kyle would have been 18 and would have been living in a different state for a few years at that point, I can't really see an 18-year-old having an in-depth real conversation with a 4-year-old, let alone a fan or budding actress. Yeah, okay. He stopped and took a picture and had a brief conversation like most celebrities do when they see a fan, especially a child. But how does a semi-routine fan interaction turn into a 9-year friendship? But I feel like I should say it again, with a 4-year-old at the time. Like, Kyle was closer to the mother's age than the daughter's age. So wouldn't an in-depth conversation seem more likely between the mom and Kyle? Like, if the mom knew her 4-year-old wanted to act or wanted to get her daughter into acting, she would be having the conversations. I don't know. Jane Doe's mom reported communication between Kyle and the minor picked up, but how did the minor even get his number? Let's just say her mom gave her his number. And Snapchat? But why would a mother let her 13-year-old daughter privately talk to a 27-year-old grown man? Especially on an app like Snapchat. I mean, even if they stayed in touch and he was like a family friend, it just still feels a little odd. And lastly, no shade to Kyle or the Masseys, but he hasn't been in a big role or major role since he was on the Disney Channel. So how the hell did this woman come up with a figure like $1.5 million? Hell, her lawyers even said they didn't think he had that much financially. Ironically, In 2017, the oldest brother, Chris Massey, was awarded $1.5 million for an older assault and robbery case involving rapper Little Twist. Later in 2018, Kyle Massey got hired onto a new show called Millennials. I'm not saying it's related, and that's the extent of information that you can find online. After about June 2021, there's no updates from any blogs or any news sites. So I found the case number and found court updates for myself. The case is definitely still going on, but it doesn't make sense. 2019 was the height of the Me Too movement. That means a lot of predators and abusers were getting called out. That also means a fair amount of fake allegations from people looking for an easy come up by using an innocent or consensual interaction that they had with someone and changing the story or outright making up stories to fit their narrative. And for that person in the comments saying I didn't unbiasedly bring you all the sides of the story, we're going to talk about a couple new allegations that came forward attempting to show Kyle's predatory pattern. In 2021, when his name came back up, the unreliable outlet The Daily Beast found these women seemingly at the perfect time when no other publications found or even spoke to them, but will run with it. According to the first accuser, Aubrey Burrow, sorry if I mispronounced that, back in 2012, her and her high school friends, who were 17 and 18 years old at the time, found Kyle Massey's Snapchat on Tumblr and would Snapchat him, sometimes receiving a response. At some point, Aubrey's male friend sent a twerking video to Kyle for some reason of someone, which Kyle responded to the video with a video of himself giving an okay sign. The next accuser wanted to be anonymous, and for a good reason, because the sick-ass woman admitted to being unprovoked, knowingly sent a photo of a 15-year-old girl in a sports bra to Massey, stating Massey opened the photo, and although he didn't respond, he didn't block her, and even continued to open photos from her. She provided no proof, but why would she? She's fucking sick. Next, we have a Jennifer Damati, who said in high school her and her friends would try to get the attention of random celebrities by including them in group messages on Instagram. Well, in November 2015, they added Massey to one of these chats. Massey, then 23 years old, sent the first message to the group of 15-year-olds, calling them sexy ladies. Now, she provided a screenshot with this, but we'll have to get more in-depth about the screenshot. The last allegations come from a model based in Los Angeles who, again, wished to be kept anonymous. She claims Massey was incredibly creepy and pushy towards her when she lived at an apartment complex that he would frequent. The woman said she eventually ended up blocking Massey to avoid his constant advances. Just as I always try to be, sometimes I just want to tell you guys my opinion. I don't think it's rocket science to see that these ladies' stories don't match the original Jane Doe's claims at all. I mean, except for the communication through Snapchat, which was barely. They never met Kyle in person. They never even had real conversations with him. He would just open their Snapchats. Instead of these allegations proving any sort of a pattern, I just have more questions. Like off the top of my dome, right? Aubrey, the first accuser, told the Daily Beast, and I quote,
"We were doing it as a joke and never actually sent anything explicit, but seeing how often he opened our snaps and occasionally replied, that doesn't surprise me at all that he had other communications with minors."
And I end quote. But she never specifies who the twerking video was of, or their age, or why it was even sent to Kyle. Taking it a step further, if they never sent anything actually explicit, wouldn't that just mean that Kyle's okay video was simply harmless? Or anonymous accuser number 1 tried to make herself seem less disgusting by saying,
"She was so clearly underage when we would have sent that."
if she was so clearly underage, why the hell would you have that picture in your phone? And why the hell would you send it to a random adult anyway? Like a random celebrity adult. You're just like, oh, I have a picture of my 15-year-old friend's titties in my phone. I'm just going to send them to Kyle Massey. Like, type of weird shit. The third accuser provided a screenshot as proof of the interaction, But the only inconsistency with her story is that there wasn't a real conversation with Kyle. He did send a message saying sexy ladies. It appears right after being added to the group, and once he read their reply, he never messaged them again. There was no further evidence of any communication. Lastly, the anonymous mom that made claims against Kyle in an attempt to prove a pattern kind of showed how desperate for a pattern these new accusers are. Kyle never broke any laws. This model was of age, and he simply acted like a guy who constantly shot his shot even though you declined. Annoying and a little rude, but predatory isn't the word for it. None of these young ladies ever planned on pressing any criminal or civil charges, probably because it wouldn't go anywhere, but none of them ever met Kyle in real life, like I said. It basically just feels like these women are trying to make it seem like any and all interactions that they've had with Kyle at some point were at some way inappropriate. The only real mistake I say Kyle made in all of these little accusations was being a thought jumping into everyone's DMs. Now, in his defense, Snapchat and Instagram had just came out, and it took time. It took a lot of time for everyone, especially celebrities, to adjust to these unwritten social media rules. Yes, Kyle was most likely opening and sometimes responding to random snaps he received, but with how many fans had his Snapchat and sent him snaps on a daily basis, if he was out here sending sausage pictures in the mirror or like the bedroom or like in his bed like that one guy from your high school, someone would have posted about it and we'd have seen it on Twitter. So I went through the facts. I gave you each party's side. I did some digging and even told you guys about the new unsubstantiated accusations against Kyle that I personally don't agree with, but I gave you all the story. So after all of that, what do you think? Again, personally, my opinion is I kind of think Kindra, who is said to be in a mess of other lawsuits and debt, I'll go ahead and throw that picture up there, seen an opportunity to make money and spite Kyle. But no matter what you really choose to believe, there hasn't been any public updates on this case since June 2021, and it really seems like they're just dragging it along. But I guess we'll just have to wait to see what happens in court, if it ever finishes. Either way, you guys know I'll keep you posted. Let me know what you guys think about this crazy story in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.